Welcome to High Stakes. I'm your host, Tracey Devlyn. On this show, I chat with authors about the moments in their stories that change everything, what's at stake, what it costs, and why we can't look away. From thrillers to romance to sci-fi and beyond. Let's get to it. Joining me today is New York Times bestselling author Lisa Unger to talk about her new psychological thriller, Served Him Right. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thanks for having me, Tracy. It's exciting to be here with you.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. We've met briefly at a couple of thriller fests, which is always
Yeah.
fun. You're always such a sweetheart and take the
Aw.
time to talk with anybody who comes by and says hello. So it's always good to see you.
Thank you.
It's
Sorry.
really interesting. After reading this book, I realized that you and I have a shared love of plants. And I obviously didn't know that before. And so yeah, that was really fun. I've got, I think, like two shelves over there that's just dedicated to native plants, herbs,
Yeah. Okay, it's
ethnobotany,
really
all sorts of things.
fascinating.
It's just fascinating.
Yeah, I've been really obsessed for a while. Like I always have some kind of obsession going on. I kind of think of my life as like a continuum, like reading, writing, researching, living, repeat, that's kind of how it goes. So I have had this really deep fascination with plants and nature and our relationship to those things for a long
Yeah.
time, longer than my current obsession, which kind of started with a book called Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake, which kind of changed the way I thought about nature in a way. And then I don't know if you've read it. It's about fungus,
No.
which
Okay. Hey,
which
very important fungi.
it's a very, very important book. I think everybody should read it. I think everybody in the world
Yep.
should read it. It's not just really super fascinating, it's also beautifully written. He's a beautiful writer, which
Okay.
is not always easy to do as a scientist. So it's beautiful. And then I also read this book called The Light Eaters by Zoe Schlanger. And then there was even yet another book on that like roster called The Most Delicious Poison by a botanist named Noah Whitehead,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
talks about plants, spices, um, you know, uh, uh, things like tobacco and opioids and stuff like that. And he tells the story through the frame of his father's addictions. And so it's a really fascinating look at our relationship to plants, how some nourish and some harm. And that was the kind of headspace I was in when I
Okay.
started writing Served Him Right.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and I don't know if you want to go ahead and talk about how that interest of yours relates to Served Him Right, if you want to go ahead and
Yeah,
talk about that
absolutely.
connection. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of collided with, usually every novel is kind of a collision of things. So that kind of obsession kind of collided with something that I read in a news story. And it was about a brunch on the other side of the world where people got together, family got together and sat down to be with each other and share a meal. And two of the people got up from that meal, and 2 days later they were both dead. And at the time, it was a mystery, but the fact was that another incident similar to that, not quite as dramatic, had happened in the life of this hostess in the past. It's no longer a mystery what happened, or not really. But it got me to thinking about how, how you might sit down to a meal with people that you trust and expect to be nourished, and instead are poisoned. And it also got me to thinking about the role of the woman in the kitchen. A certain type of woman who has a knowledge of plants and how they might heal and how they might harm. And so those were the point, that was the collision point. And then I started hearing the voice of my one of my main characters, Anna Blacksmith.
Hmm.
And she was the first voice that kind of hooked me into the story. And so when we start Served Him Right, we're basically at brunch. And it's a brunch that Anna and her sister Vera have called. And it's not your ordinary brunch. It's an exorcism, heavy on the X.
Yes, exorcism.
It's an exorcism. And Anna has kind of gathered her friends together. And the point is to eradicate her cheating ex-boyfriend, Paul, from all their social media feeds Like, so, delete, unfollow, goodbye. And so and everybody at the table has some reason to dislike Paul and some reason that they don't mind necessarily being rid of him, at least in social media. But before the end of brunch, the police are at the door, and Paul has not just been eradicated from their social media feeds, he has in fact been found murdered. And Anna, who has a very dark and dangerous history with men, is the prime suspect. And so that's kind of how all of that worked, like obsession, collision, character voice, and then, just this kind of idea about sitting down to a meal and, the woman in the kitchen and who has this special kind of knowledge about herbs and plants and how they might use it. And so that is where I was at when I started writing.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, and you've included a lot of different women in this, and from different generations,
Yeah.
right? And so it feels like I guess it felt like to me like almost like an empowerment, a women's empowerment.
Mhm.
Did it feel that way to you? Did you go,
Yeah.
am I close to that? Okay.
Yeah. I
Is
mean,
that
I think
something
it's like,
you,
yeah, you kind of don't really, I mean, I don't make a ton of intellectual decisions, which is like, if you've heard me talk about my craft and creativity before, like,
yeah.
I don't have these thoughts like, I'm going to write a book about this, and it's going to be about this, and this is going to be my theme, and these are my characters, and I'm going to sketch out my plot. Like, that's just not how it works for me. Like, I have to have this kind of engine, which is, I have these characters on the page and they reveal themselves to me, and all my plots flow from these characters, and I follow those voices through the narrative. And I've done this since I was a kid, really. But however, at the end of the day, I did have this kind of, I don't know, maybe it's this moment in time, or maybe it's like, a woman of a certain age, like looking at the way the world has changed for women and, what's going on. I am definitely a little bit more in touch with my dark side, and I think some of my characters are in touch with their dark side as well. Which is not to say that power is evil, because that's just kind of a misogynistic trope that we find in a lot of literature, even back to fairy tales, right? Any woman of power is a witch or she's evil. So that's pretty much, I mean, we all come from that tradition of storytelling, but the women in this book are all extremely powerful in different ways, including Coraline, who is Vera's daughter. So we have Vera and Anna and their sisters. And Anna is like very wild and unpredictable. She makes mistakes. She's made some big mistakes with men. She's somewhat floundering in her career. And Vera is her very buttoned up, successful, controlling older sister. She's from all appearances, like has her life together, and Coraline is Vera's daughter. And Coraline is, I think in my knowledge of her, she's like the best of Vera and Anna. She's
Yeah.
got all of Vera's, intelligence and discipline, and she's got all of Anna's boldness and daring. And then we see like Agnes, who is Vera and Anna's aunt, and she was the person who took them in, on the worst night of their lives when the worst things happened. It's obviously they're as sisters, they're formed in trauma, they're bonded by blood, but they're also bonded by their experience. And then we see things from Agnes's perspective. So we have a perspective on these characters when they're children, and then we have them perspective on each one from the other, and then as adults as well. So it's definitely like a generational kind of saga from Agnes to Vera and Anna to Coraline, and there's this knowledge that they share. Agnes was a florist and an herbalist, and she was famous for her many cures, her cures for what ail you. Maybe it's a flu or lady troubles or something more important.
Yeah.
So she has this knowledge, she wants to pass it on to Vera, but Vera doesn't want anything to do with it. So she says. And but it still kind of finds its way through to Anna and then to Coraline. So that's kind of, and they're all powerful in their really different ways. And they're all, in spite of all the sort of fighting and bickering and you're trying to control me and stop acting like a child and all of that. There's like this fierce devotion and all of them are capable of doing literally anything to protect the other.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There were times, and I think maybe especially towards the end, and I'll be careful not to spoil anything, but there were times when I felt like, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, that you were that you were talking to your daughter at times, and I don't know if that
Hmm.
was the case or not, but through a couple of the characters,
Oh, you gave me
I, I,
goosebumps.
oh,
I
it
guess
was
you
just
must be, I guess you must be right.
yeah, it was really nice. I just I could totally feel that moment when you were writing those passages and I'm like, "Oh, I wonder if this is something that, Lisa's saying to her daughter." Or, I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know. It's just
interesting.
like one of those
Yeah,
weird
that's
feelings
interesting.
I had. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously it just gave me goosebumps, so you must be right on some level. But I mean, it definitely is like, it's funny because I was just having this conversation with my daughter, and we were actually talking about something unrelated, which was a news story that I was reading about why Gen Z is not dating. Why there's
Mm.
all these like problems interrelationally between, boys and girls, or I guess, men and women, right? I mean, they seem like kids to me, but they're adults, right? And so we were talking about that, and they were saying that part of the reason for this is that, parents had prioritized achievement over, relationship talks. That like like, of course, it's always your fault, right? But like parents weren't, giving enough relationship advice, and they were more like, hey, eye on the ball, right? Do your do your
Yeah.
schoolwork, which I've
Yeah.
definitely, we did have a lot of talks about, relationships and men and but a lot of our talks were hey, this is how you protect yourself, right? I mean, that was a big feature of some of the conversations I had with my daughter. It was a kind of like a stay in the Jeep mentality, like life is is
Yeah.
a safari. And you don't know what's out
Yeah.
there, so be careful when you when you
There
get out
could
of
be
the
a meerkat or there could be a lion. You just never
exactly.
know.
You don't know. Just stay in the Jeep. That's all you need to know. So it was a lot of it was about protecting yourself, and that for me was, was kind of tantamount, and I don't know whether it was a cultural thing or it's just me,
Mm.
from experiences that I've had, or just being a thriller writer and just having like this kind of technicolor imagination about like how badly things can go wrong. Like, I mean, I could write anything in my brain in 30 seconds, like in vivid detail, which is maybe great for the page, maybe not great for life. But yeah, I mean, I do think that a lot of the stuff in that book it's not just a message to my daughter. It might just be a message to women in general, which is like,
Hmm.
you know, be strong, be prepared to have agency over your life, to take dominion over your body, and know how to protect yourself if it comes down to
Yeah.
it. And be careful about the decisions you make and where you wind up. Of course, Anna makes a lot of terrible decisions when it comes to men. And so it's up to Vera to kind of step in there. But,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not a specific thought, but like for sure, it's something that's on my mind, especially,
Hmm.
for younger women who are coming up in this world. Like, take good care of yourself.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not a bad message to get out there
Yeah.
again and again for sure.
Yeah.
So we were kind of joking a little bit earlier about these exorcisms. Is are those get-togethers a real thing or is that something from Lisa Unger's mind?
I wish I could take credit for that. I don't know where I read it. I know I read it somewhere. I kind of went back and looked for it, and then it couldn't, it didn't come up anywhere. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I did dream it. Maybe I read it in an article, but I was sure I read something like this because it's such a, I mean, and it's such a big
That's great.
feature of
Yeah.
breakups these days, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's like, just speaking strictly for, my daughter and, her breakups and stuff, it's like the social media component to a breakup is a huge factor in healing and getting over it, because if you share, a friend group or you have, you're still following your ex or your ex is still following you, and there's all these different platforms where they can follow each other. Like even Venmo has like a following, like you can sit like,
I know.
oh, they went to dinner with X and split the
It's so
bill.
weird.
Like, I mean, there's all this stuff. And then
Yeah.
like everybody, all the kids, track each other now. They all like,
Mm.
oh, they follow each other on Snap and other places, Life 360, all of those things. So they all like know where the other person is. So like it's a big feature of your breakup is like, oh, I'm unfollowing him. Oh my God, he blocked me. Oh my God, like what's he doing there? Like all the stuff. So I just kind of was like present. It was very present in my mind at the time. And I know it's not original, but I feel like I own it now.
I think so. I think so. It's great. I laughed whenever I saw it. I was like, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
So I really enjoyed Anna's bantering relationship that she had with her niece and nephew, and mostly I think her niece,
Yeah.
Coraline. But and I did notice that you dedicated this book to your nephew, your new
Yeah.
nephew, whose
Yeah.
namesake you used in the book, which
I
was
did.
very cute. What kind of aunt do you hope to be to Grant?
Oh, I hope that, I mean, I was just with him at dinner and we were a couple weeks ago and we were talking about having very frank discussions about AI and what he should and should be using shouldn't be using AI for. And I found myself saying like, "Hey, you don't want to grow up being some AI idiot who doesn't know anything. You did all your homework on AI." And he was like, so I hope I'm the aunt. And my niece Violet, who got the last book, Close Your Eyes and Count to 10, it was dedicated to her. Her name was used as a character in Close Your Eyes and Count to 10. So I hope that I'm the aunt who always tells them the truth, who they know like loves them beyond measure and who
Yeah.
they feel like, when I give you advice, it's going to be love-centered but very clear-eyed advice on, on how to conduct yourself in this crazy world that we're in. So I hope they have that, I hope they have those combinations of things like honesty and love and, fun that we have have a lot of fun together because we do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. All right, great. Well, on this show, we like to talk about the story stakes. I always joke love, death, and the fate of the realm are all high stakes in the story. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on what's personally at stake for Anna in this book.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I always feel like the big stakes are always the smallest stakes. The big stakes are, the things that keep us up at night are,
Yeah.
it's not the fate of the free world, although, maybe it is right now.
These days, yes.
Some of us are up about that a lot more than we were. But it's also like it's the little things that keep us awake at night. Like, can I pay my bills? Like, is my child okay? Is my mom okay? What can I do for my dog? Like like all these like your family, the things that are important to you.
Mhm.
Those are the big stakes. Those are the real stakes, right? And so I think that's true for all of my characters in this book. They all have something kind of small but big at stake. I mean, for Vera, obviously, it's control, constant control of everything. For Coraline, it's, she wants her agency. She wants to be who she wants to be, not who everybody else wants her to be. And Anna, I think what's interesting about Anna is that when she grows up like kind of under Vera's wing and also under her shadow and maybe a little bit under her thumb to
Yeah.
some degree. And so I think for siblings, especially in this case, it's always about love, right? Like so resources are, for a sibling, it's attention and love and all of the stuff. And like Anna really wants to be what Vera is, like what Vera seems to effortlessly be. But I think that, for Anna, just like Coraline, I think a lot of it is like she wants her agency. She wants her place in the family and in the hierarchy and within the cove. Like that's what she
Yeah.
wants. That's her big stakes. And also she just like, doesn't want to go to jail.
This is true.
That's the big thing. She doesn't want to go to jail and she doesn't want to get offed by the cove. Those are
Right.
those are pretty big too. But like inside, she just wants to be loved. As
And
do we all.
it's really interesting too what you're saying about Anna wanting I guess to be Vera or be like Vera.
Yeah.
It's interesting too because maybe I'm projecting here, but I feel like she also knows that she wouldn't be happy there
Yeah,
either.
exactly.
You
But
know?
that doesn't matter to us, right? Like when
Yeah.
you think you like,
Yeah.
I think especially in that sibling relationship, right? Like there's so much like there's so much entanglement there, and it's like they may have something that you don't want, but you don't necessarily want them to have it either. And if
No,
you don't have what you want, so because I think that's really the problem with Anna is that she doesn't have what she wants. She doesn't have the kind of career that she thought she was going to have. She doesn't have the kind of stability that she thought she was going to have at this point in her life. And, she's had these like kind of, she's had these like kind of major problems, without getting too deep into it with
yeah,
men. And she's run afoul of the Cove, which is this group of herbalists. She's run afoul of them in the past, and so she's a little bit like she wants the place that Vera gave up within the Cove, right? Like Agnes wanted to pass along her, mantle to Vera, and Vera was like, no, but it didn't go to Anna either. And Anna felt
right.
like, well, I'm this too. Why not me? And the fact was that, Agnes just didn't trust her
Yeah,
with the power.
yeah, right. And once again, even if Agnes had selected Anna,
Yeah.
Anna, that would have made Anna feel well, but she probably would have felt very suffocated by it
Yeah.
within a
And she would
short
have,
period of
she
time too,
probably would
right?
have rebelled without really knowing that that's what she was doing. She would have
Yeah,
rebelled against that kind of structure and responsibility because she doesn't really want that.
yeah, yeah.
She just wants
Well,
she wants the patina of that power, but she doesn't want the responsibility.
right, exactly. Yeah, that's a beautiful way of saying it.
Yeah.
Well, to switch gears just a little bit here, you've built a successful career over the course of 20 plus books. Where are you at now? Is it like 23, 24
Yeah, this one is
books?
23, 24 is done,
23.
and I'm writing
Okay.
25. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right, great. What's the one thing that still excites you about being a writer?
Oh, it's the writing. Oh God, that's it. That's everything all day,
Yeah.
every day. The writing and the characters, getting to know these characters that pop up on the page, discovering them, discovering their stories, getting in deep to those, those psychologies and the language and, just, not knowing the end of my story, like that engine of like just trying to understand what's happening on the page, like the same excitement I
Hmm.
get from reading, I get from writing, and that is all of it. That is every single thing for me. It's the rest of it is, incidental to that.
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
great. All right. And one more question. What is one thing readers might be surprised to learn about you?
Oh, that I'm really super nice.
I don't think that would be a
I
surprise.
think, well, this is so funny because I have this thing where I walk into stores and people are like looking at me and they're like, "Oh my God, you seem like you're such a nice person." I'm like, I I
That's
am a nice
great.
person. I exercise all my demons onto the page, right? So
Yeah.
that allows me to live in the light and to,
Oh, I see.
and
There's like,
to,
how does a nice person write books like this?
right.
Is that what you're
But I
talking?
think if you
Okay, I
haven't
get
met
it.
me, you might think that I would be like kind of dark and brooding and like,
I
and
think you're
kind of
right. I think a
smarmy.
lot of thriller writers, they get it all out on the page
Yeah.
and they are some of the nicest people I've ever met, thriller
Right.
writers.
I
Just
mean,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Like if you come to Thriller Fest, you will be amazed. We are so nice to each other. We
Yeah.
love each other. We support each other. We do things for each other. I mean, like this podcast is a great example of that. It's like we do a lot to support each other. And the organization also, really does a lot
Hmm.
to support its membership, to educate and bolster and help authors at, every stage of their career. And I think that that's just a testament to some of the personalities that created it, like Dave Morrell and Gail Lynd, and all these folks were, to this day, are just so generous and kind and, helpful to other authors.
Yeah. And for those folks who might not be aware, Thriller Fest that Lisa's talking about, it's an annual conference that takes place in New York every year, and it's put on by the International Thriller Writers.
Correct.
And Lisa is a co-chair of that organization, and it's just a wonderful organization. I help out with Query Fest there too, where
Yeah.
folks can send in their query letters and have an expert take a look at it. So as Lisa said, it is an organization who's very much about helping its members and
Yeah.
getting them published and helping them with craft and just networking and all of it, just all of it's there.
Yeah.
Marketing, just really very helpful. It's
Yeah, I
great.
mean, I think that, and I do talk about this a lot because, and it's not just because, I'm the co-president along with Greg Hurwitz. It's not, that's not why when I talk, I do, some talking about creativity and always on the road, people are, aspiring and asking, what can I do? I think that a conference like Thriller Fest, I mean, depending, of course, on what type of book you're writing, a conference like Thriller Fest is probably one of the best things you can do for yourself as an aspiring writer because
Mm.
it gets you into this other, it brings you into this world, especially at something like Thriller Fest, where there's editor and agent relationships that you can form, and there's, appointments and, all different kinds of education about writing. And then you're going to meet some of the most successful people that are doing the thing that you want to do. And so you get the benefit of their experience, and then you're going to meet other authors who are aspiring. And these are the people that are going to become your friends. Like the people who are, I met at my first BoucherCon in 2002, in Washington, D.C. Some of those people to this day are my best, some of my best and closest friends. And,
Yeah.
we all kind of came up together and, took our various paths, but, that connection is so important. Writers are introverts, so it's hard to go to these conferences, but it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
absolutely agree. It's great. I've met some wonderful people, and it's funny. My friend Adrian and I we talk about it that that conferences doesn't matter if it's thriller
Right. Could
writers
be
or
anything.
romance
Yeah.
writers, whichever one. It
Yeah.
when you get there, you feel like you're amongst your people because you
Right.
can talk about the things that
Yeah.
you deal with on a day-to-day basis with people who are also dealing with it on a day-to-day basis. And as much
Agree.
as our family and friends love us, they sometimes just don't get it, right? So it's
Exactly. They
nice to
don't.
be
I mean,
amongst
it's
people
hard
who
to
do.
get. It's a hard business to understand. It's a hard profession. It's there are so many joys to it, but also so many challenges. And then the only people that understand it are the people who are in the business.
Yeah.
So it is a really it's nourishing to have that kind of contact. So I always say, like, during my Crow president's address, like, here, this is the conference for people who would rather be literally any place else, right? Like like this is the introverts, like, I just need to stay in my room and write my novel, which,
That's true.
of course you do, right? You do need to do that. You need to be that most of the time, but you should let yourself out of your box every once in a while to, to go and connect and learn about the business and learn about the industry, because I think, a lot of people, like, you know, they get their first book publisher, they get their first book contract, and they literally know nothing about the business. And I think it's incredibly shocking for those people how the business works. So if you walk into it with at least a little of foreknowledge of what, what's in front of you, then, you're at an advantage.
Yeah. Well, and for those who might be thinking about going to Thriller Fest, uh, go to the awards banquet for sure, just for
For sure.
Lisa and Greg's president address. They're always so much fun, lots of laughs at those.
Thank you.
So
I
it's
appreciate
good
that.
time, good time. All right. Well, before we go, can you share what's coming up next? You hinted at it a little bit earlier. I don't know if you can give us any details, a
Yeah, I can't. Well, I okay.
title, anything.
I'll say these things. So, I have a short story coming out this summer called "The Safe Room." So that's coming out, and so if it'll hold you over until next spring, where the new novel come out. I'm not quite ready to talk about it yet. Just I only just now know what Served Him Right is about. That I'm out on the road talking about it. So I'm still kind of, it's still kind of in there.
Processing
I
it,
still have
yeah.
my copy edits to do and stuff like that. So I'm still thinking about, like, what can I change? What can I do? And so I'm not quite ready to talk about it yet, but I will say this, it's psychological suspense and bad things will happen. For
Perfect. All right, that sounds great. Well, folks, be sure to order your copy of Served Him Right today. You can learn more about Lisa by visiting her website at lisaunger.com, where you'll find all of her social media links, and be sure to sign up for her website while you're there. Lisa,
Oh
thank
yeah,
you.
if you do my newsletter, you can get a free short story.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think it's a story only for subscribers, right? You
it
can't get it
is.
anywhere else.
Nope.
All right,
Nope.
perfect. Incentive right there. Well,
Awesome.
thank you so much, Lisa. This was great. It's always wonderful, as I said, chatting with you. It's great to catch up.
Thank you, Tracy. It's wonderful.
You bet. That's it for today's high stakes story. Follow the show so the next episode lands right in your feed. And if you enjoyed today's chat, a quick rating or review helps new listeners find us. Visit tracydevlyn.com/podcast for show notes and links to today's amazing guest and their fabulous book. High Stakes is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. Thanks for listening. Until next time, enjoy the adventure, everyone.